Excuse me, we have someone online that says Mike's iPhone. Could you please identify yourself?
Did you hear me? Supervisor Goodman.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Good morning. Good morning to members of the MAG Regional Council. This meeting is now called to order. For those around the table, please turn on your microphone when speaking. For those participating via Zoom, please state your name when making a comment or asking a question. The MAG public comment process allows members of the public to comment on items on today's agenda, informational items, or on items that fall under MAG's jurisdiction. If you would like to comment at today's meeting, please fill out a request to speak card located on the information table in the hallway. If you parked in the garage, parking validators are available on the information table in the hallway. If you purchased a transit ticket to come to the meeting, please see staff for a ticket. Hearing assisted devices are available from MAG staff. We will now begin the meeting with a roll call of all members.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. When I call your name, please indicate that you are present. Mayor Beck. Mayor Bien Wilner.
Here.
Thank you. President Burnett.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Crane.
Here.
Thank you. Ms. Daniels. Mayor Dickey.
Here.
Thank you. Chair Gallego.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Giles. Thank you. Supervisor Goodman.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Hall. Mayor Hall. Mayor Hartke.
Here.
Thank you. President Javier.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Hermosillo. Mayor LaVault.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Governor Roe Lewis. Mr. Meck. Mayor Molina. Mayor Morris.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Osborne.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Ortega.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Pereira. Mayor Peterson.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Pizzillo. Mayor Rodriguez. Mayor Schultz.
Here.
Thank you. Supervisor Sellers.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Sykes.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Smith.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Walter. Mayor Wires.
Present and accounted for.
Thank you. Mayor Wise. Mayor Wheatley. Thank you. Mayor Wilson.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Woods.
Here.
Thank you. Is there anyone that I missed? Madam Chair, we have quorum.
Thank you so much. We now go to item 2, Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance.
Indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Our next item is call to the audience. This is the opportunity for the public to comment on items that are not on the agenda that are within the jurisdiction of MAG, informational items, or items on the agenda for discussion, but not for action. We do have a few speaker cards. We will begin with Jeff Caldwell, followed by Diane Barker.
Chair, members. Maricopa County Association of Governments is an unelected body that is not a real government entity. You guys are appointed, and MAG should not exist in its current form. It should be abolished and returned to a traditional nonprofit. We also, Maricopa County citizens, truly don't believe in road diets and expansion of policies that will take cars off the road. So please stop moving forward with those types of policies. And then I have to cover 8 and 9 in this section because we can't comment on information, but 8 is economic and housing trends update. And so I just wanted to make sure that you all are aware that the Federal Reserve shows that housing inventory, active listing count in Maricopa County is trending upward over the last 3 months. We can view that as a positive, in my opinion. Hopefully the prices of housing comes down. The central bank also shows the housing price index for Maricopa County is currently skyrocketing. The median listing price in Maricopa County is topping and finally heading down. We could see that on the chart over the last 3 or 4 months. The median sales price of houses sold for the entire United States is actually collapsing faster than at any rate in history. So we should be bracing for an economic catastrophe. I actually said that this was going to happen to one of my friends in August of 2020 because of skyrocketing interest rates due to printing trillions of dollars from the Federal Reserve. So in item 9, MAG is looking to spend funds from Prop 400 extension that has not been approved from voters. This is completely unacceptable and totally fiscally irresponsible. Spending millions of dollars without approval is taking complete advantage of taxpayers. As you are aware, citizens of Arizona want road, street, and highway improvements and expansion. However, voters do not approve of the allocation that was passed and signed by Katie Hobbs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Diane.
Good afternoon, Mayor, and happy birthday. And the MAG mayors and tribal heads. Yay, D-backs! Oh my gosh, we surprised everybody. Don't you just love the Cinderella horse? So they're headed down to the Texas Rangers. We wish them a lot of luck Friday. And watch out, because they're going to be back here, folks. And that means your job of getting the transportation is paramount. Getting good, fluid transportation. I'm living downtown now, but I've lived in 7 different cities and I have made multimodal work for me. I do come from a time where I paid on cars, you know, and not particularly today after listening to the gentleman before me telling about crash and housing. Well, a lot of people can't even afford the starter home, let alone a car. Cars are expensive. We need a multimodal plan to fit everybody. We have disabled persons of disabilities we need to support. And as far as riding in mass, I went to Pink I didn't have to buy an expensive ticket because I don't sit in my seat. So, I got pictures from all around, moving around. It was wonderful, but I want to share with you the platform of the light rail. Just for one train that was coming was packed. People do use these rails, and they use buses too. I think we need to reform the system. I mean, I go out and I can see if there's a loaded bus or not. And I don't think we need as big vehicles. We really do need to look at it, but we need a multimodal balance plan. And also in regards to handling the traffic, I think that we have overlooked the citizenry, the people that are actually out there. When I was a driver in 20 years ago, I know I'm telling you my age, but in Disneyland, electric buses, you know who helped me with the public and the riders was the public, because when even on this light rail, there's a bicyclist on there, whatever, you'll hear somebody, we got a bicycle, we have a bike. People will start helping out. We need to have more of the public to support cleaner areas, bus stops, and we don't need what the people are calling that word Nazi, these type of transportation guards that are looking, you don't have a pass, you need to get off. And B, we need more hostesses. Thank you.
MAG also provides the opportunity for members of the public to submit written comments via the MAG website. Any comments received 2 hours prior to the meeting have been shared with committee members in advance of the meeting for consideration and will be included in the formal meeting minutes. We have received many comments. Section 4, informational items, is for those that are for information only. There are no items for section 4 today, so we go to 5, approval of consent agenda. Items 5A through 5J are on the consent agenda. Does any member of the committee have questions or request a presentation on any of these items? Prior to the approval of the consent agenda, members of the public can provide comment on any items on the consent agenda. I have 3 requests to speak on consent agenda items. And then we also have online written comments. We'll begin with Donnie Bond, followed by Jeff Caldwell.
Good afternoon. I think it's afternoon now. My name is Donnie Bond. I live in Goodyear, Arizona. I just wanted to thank you for your diligence in listening to us on our right for transportation freedom that we do not want to lose. As I understand it, you've submitted research showing our desert climate cannot attain the EPA 70 parts per million. I hope you will continue to ask for an exception due to our desert climate, as shown by the statistics that the experts have given you. I hope that you will keep in mind that our transportation needs vary, and as an American, we need you to protect our individual freedoms. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff is next, followed by Dan.
Chair, members. So 5B, 5C, and 5E center around road diet, well, some policies of road diets and expansion of light rail and bus rapid transit. So with 5B, the conformity consultation. So the consultation needs to understand that Maricopa County residents do not want road diets, and that road diets, bus rapid transit, and expanding light rail put small businesses out of business with the construction. And they also increase traffic and pollution. So when you do road diets, you have more idling pollution from the tailpipes. So 5C and 5E, TIP and Momentum 2050, along with the aorta or the man, I haven't said this word ever before. I've read it many times. I'm so sorry. The arterial life cycle programs all need to stop implementing road diets, bus rapid transit, and expanding light rail. We need to make sure that small businesses are not impacted because of man, having a tough time today. I'm sorry. Because of construction. And so we need to make sure that we put the small person first and make sure that we solidify the rights of the individuals who live in Maricopa County. With 5D, public transportation agency safety plans, public transit does not have enough police officers on the vehicles or transit motives operating at the current moment. And so we need to make sure that we have enough police officers to prevent crime and the homeless from becoming criminals, harassing individuals, along with people that need to get the help that they need to become better. Because there's been reports, multiple reports, that people who do take public transit have been harassed and are victims of crime. We also need to make sure that people do actually pay their fees, but that's another instance where we do need to make sure that we have public safety, because if the fees are enforced, then people will potentially want to rob somebody in order to pay the fee. I mean, I understand there are people out there who cannot afford this. So there should also be a policy that maybe the least fortunate has access to, maybe a pass that they get. So, you know, this is totally unfair for all users if we don't force people to actually pay or have correct forms to take advantage of the system. Thank you.
Thank you. Diane.
Thank you again, Mayor Kate. I would like to speak on several of the agenda items. One is the minutes. Although I don't agree with some of the contents of the minutes, I do agree about the way that MAG has delivered the freedom of speech. In my opinion, when you can't speak freely on particularly necessary concerns, the whole system is down. The whole game. We need to preserve freedom of speech. And this idea coming from somebody that says the pollution is not coming from here, it's coming from China. There isn't any bad air. All I'm trying to say is that yay for freedom of speech. I totally don't agree. I go out in the pollution all the time. I've driven buses and seen little kids have to put up with these particulates around buses. Fortunately, they're getting cleaner. So that's my opinion on that. But what's more important in opinion is modeling. And I do say this, I think most of the time people that do know me, I walk my talk. You know, I am out there. I do totally disagree about these people that are using transit are just homeless. And we've heard that from the gentleman before me. The thing about it is there are many different types of people. The transit was built for different types of people. And the thing is that not all the homeless are criminals. And some of the biggest crooks are very wealthy people in this society. So I think that you know this, and to put this with the people, we do have charitable groups that can help people get a ride on transit. So let me just cover these other, as far as safety goes, this is something new to me, these three areas, Valley Metro, of course, and MAG and so forth, they all need to prove safety. I am for that. And one of the biggest things that we saw down in Louisiana, and we're talking about don't go on a road diet or whatever. The thing is, these were 186 vehicles with 8 deaths and like 83 people going into fog. So I submit to you, as far as when we're getting more traffic, which we will in the winter months and so forth, we need to integrate where there is like a truck with great big pileups, and have those detours. All your communities should have that information to detour the people out of those problem areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve consent items 5A through 5J?
I'll make a motion to approve. I'll second.
We have a motion from Mayor Osborne and a second from Mayor Woods. We will have those participating in the meeting online now take part in the voice vote by turning on their cameras and unmuting their audio. We need to see the faces of everyone to participate in the voice vote. This is to speed up the voting process. For those who cannot or do not want to turn on their cameras, staff will conduct a roll call vote. Staff will only call on those virtual participants who did not turn on their camera. Members, please leave your cameras on until after the roll call vote so staff can count the people's names whose cameras are not on. Can I have a voice vote of those in the room and those online? Those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. Members, please leave your cameras on. Staff, can you take a roll call of the members participating virtually who did not turn on their camera?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and all members have their cameras on, so the motion passes.
Nicely done, everyone.
Great job.
Thank you to Meg staff for improving that process. Item number 6 is second project deferral request, City of Tempe, Scottsdale Road Bike Lane continuation. Mr. Zerker, can you please introduce the item?
Thank you, Madam Chair, Mayor, members of the council. These next two items are way more granular than we normally bring to regional council. As you'll see, they're very specific projects in specific cities. They normally does not come to regional council in this way. But just to give you a little bit of context here before Patrick takes it on, this is part of a process revision from about 8 years ago, which was designed to ensure that dollars allocated to projects gets out the door quickly, so that good projects can be funded and free up the way for other projects to be funded. So it encourages member agencies to only submit projects when they are actually really ready to go. And it's a good project that isn't ready to go should never bump out a good project that is ready to go. And that was the policy statement of the Regional Council in 2015. Staff revised the process. However, the process also recognizes that there are unexpected things that happen with projects. We do dozens and hundreds of projects that never have to come through this, but occasionally there are projects that encounter situations where a city needs to ask to defer for a year or two. And so this is now where we are. So it's made the deferrals rare, but in this case, we have two that actually occur on the same agenda. It doesn't mean that something has failed. It means that the process is working, because you're not seeing a whole bunch of these, which means that cities are getting projects on and they're spending money timely. And when there's actually an issue, we're being able to deal with that, and it frees up money and project space for all of you, all of your staff to do that. So with that kind of wind up here as to why are we hearing about two very specific projects, let's get to the two specific projects. And Patrick Stone, who's our Transportation Improvement Program Supervisor, is here for the first one with a colleague from the City of Tempe. Patrick.
Thank you, Ed. Chair, members of the Regional Council, a pleasure to be here to present this item. Before I turn it over to the City of Tempe, I just want to acknowledge, as part of the deferral process, we do ask member agencies to present through the committee process. They are to identify what has caused the deferral and then how the agency has addressed those issues that necessitated the deferral. And with that, I will turn it over to Ms. Lindsay Post with the City of Tempe.
Thank you, Mr. Stone. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the MAG Regional Council. Hello, Mr. Mayor. I'm Lindsay Post, Senior Transportation Planner with the City of Tempe, and I'm here to present our second deferral request for the Scottsdale Road Bike Lane Continuation Project, which spans from Curry Road to Continental Drive in Northeast Tempe. Next slide. Scottsdale Road is a 6-lane arterial with dedicated left turn lanes and landscaped medians. There are currently 8-foot sidewalks, and users can connect to the red and blue active transportation paths that you see here. North of the corridor becomes Roosevelt in the city of Scottsdale. And from here, users will be able to connect to Phoenix, Scottsdale, and Mesa. Next slide. This project will provide 1.25 miles of protected bike lanes, which will be a first for an entire corridor for the city of Tempe. We do have examples of certain segments of protected bike lanes throughout Tempe, but this will be a first of an entire corridor that has protected bike lanes. It will include ADA accessibility improvements, pavement preservation, and supplemental lighting and landscaping. Next slide. This slide shows our anticipated project timeline, assuming that our deferral request is approved. We already have final plan specifications, cost estimates, and our environmental clearance is complete. We anticipate obligating this project in March of 2024, construction starting in September, with users being able to access it starting June 2025. Next slide. The reason for our second deferral request is to allow us to complete the right-of-way acquisition with 13 property owners along the corridor, which is anticipated to be finalized in February of 2024. City staff remains committed to this project, and the CIP still reflects this project's local match and contingency funds. Next slide. With that, we are respectfully requesting the approval of a second deferral for our Scottsdale Road Bike Lane Continuation Project. And I'm here to answer any questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any questions for Patrick and Lindsay? Do we have a motion? We do not have any speaker cards.
Move for approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments? All right. We will have those participating in the meeting online take part in the voice vote by turning on their cameras and unmuting their audio. Members, please leave your cameras on until after the roll call vote. Can I have a voice vote of those in the room and those online? Those in favor say aye.
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 Those
Aye.
opposed,
Aye.
members, please leave your cameras on for just a moment. And MAG staff will do a roll call.
Thank you, Madam Chair. All members have their cameras on. The motion passes.
Wonderful. Item 7 is third project deferral request, City of Phoenix, Van Buren Street, 7th Street to 24th Street. Mr. Zerker, can you please introduce agenda item number 7?
Mr. Stone will introduce the colleague from the city of Phoenix on this third deferral item. Patrick?
Thank you, Ed. Madam Chair, members of the Regional Council. Real quick before I turn this over to the City of Phoenix, just to highlight, this is a third deferral request. This is only the second time the Regional Council has heard a third deferral request. So kind of a unique circumstance. Other than that, all the things I said previously, Ed said previously, apply to this request as well. And with that, I'll turn this presentation over to Ms. Leticia Vargas with the City of Phoenix.
Thank you, Mr. Stone. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the MAG Regional Council. As Mr. Stone has said, my name is Leticia Vargas. I'm a Special Projects Administrator with the City of Phoenix Street Transportation Department. Thank you so much for this opportunity to present on a very important pedestrian safety and streetscape project, a third project deferral for the city along Van Buren Street from 7th Street to 24th Street. Next slide, please. As you can see from our project area, Van Buren starts on the west end of 7th Street and goes to about 24th Street on the west end, east end. Van Buren has 2 travel lanes, 2 in each direction, and we also have a 10-foot wide two-way left turn lane. I do want to point out that our project will not be impacting any of the travel lanes along Van Buren Street. There is existing sidewalk along this entire stretch, anywhere from 4 to 5 feet on both the north and south side. The current right-of-way for Van Buren is approximately 80 feet. If you compare that to modern day standards, an arterial like Van Buren would be more like 100 feet of right-of-way. As you can see, Van Buren also provides direct access to other arterials on our street network, including 7th Street, 16th Street, and 24th Street. It also has a very popular bus route, line 3, that goes down this stretch. And one of the things I do want to point out is we have over 1,200 average weekday boardings along this particular stretch of roadway. So that's a lot of pedestrians that are walking to and from their bus stops. Next slide, please. Today, our project scope consists of a 2-mile pedestrian safety and streetscape improvements project. We will be updating all of our sidewalks and ramps to ADA standards. We'll also be adding 2 new hawk crossings at 15th Street and 23rd Street. We have an existing 2-stage crossing at 11th Street, and we will be updating that to a hawk as well. We will be adding pedestrian level lighting along the entire corridor, adding pedestrian refuge median islands where appropriate, adding landscaping and shade throughout the entire corridor, redesigning our traffic signals. We have about 5 along this stretch. We will be redesigning those, as well as updating our streetlights to current standards. Next slide, please. So here's an overview of our project schedule and really what has led us to this 3rd deferral request. In February of 2016, our project was awarded a Transportation Alternatives Grant for a fiscal year 2020 construction project. The original project included a bicycle and pedestrian improvement project. In November of 2017, our project was kicked off and we got to about 60% design. We actually got our environmental NEPA clearance approved. And it was through the public involvement process that we realized there was a concern with the original project concept. For that reason, in October of 2019, the City of Phoenix requested its first project deferral of this project to fiscal year 2022. And we did that for a reason. We really wanted to engage with our public and see what they wanted along this corridor. After additional public involvement efforts, the city realized that the original project concept was not a viable option for the majority of the public. For that reason, in February of 22, the city requested a scope modification and a deferral to reflect our current project scope. And that is what we are presenting today, a pedestrian safety and streetscape improvements project. With continued public input and support, we've had over 8 public meetings on this particular project. So we've been able to capture our public input. And that has impacted our project schedule. The critical path now being our right-of-way clearance, which can take anywhere from 12 to 18 months. For that reason, in October of 2023, we are requesting a 3rd project deferral. We are currently at 60% design, and we expect to have final design by the end of this year. We've also updated our NEPA approval. It is approved, and we are waiting on utility and right-of-way clearance. Obviously, contingent on this deferral approval, we're hoping to have our project ready to obligate in February of 2025, and we will be going to construction in spring and summer of 2025. Our current project estimate is about $6.6 million. Next slide, please. With that, our 3rd deferral requested is to realign our project schedule to address all our federal clearances and utilities, specifically right-of-way, which is our critical path. And that's based on the revised scope that we were able to listen and hear through the public process. The city does have the required local participation identified in our capital improvement program, and we have the adequate staff, and we are committed to complete this project. Next slide, please. With that, the city respectfully requests approval of this 3rd deferral for our Van Buren project, 7th Street to 24th Street. And with that, I'll answer any questions.
Thank you, Leticia. Any questions? We have 1 speaker on this item, Diane Barker.
Thank you, Mayor. I oppose this 3rd deferral. I think it's a red flag, and Ed Zerker, you're responsible. Right here, MAG staff anticipates a review and update to the guidelines to clarify this issue. It should be MAG staff will, and give the date that you're going to update your guidelines. You listen to this, it all sounded sweet, and in no disrespect to Miss Vargas and what I'm saying. She obviously came and did her job to let you know. To think about this is 2016, and they started it off. It sounds like, because we had 8 public meetings and it's all this public meeting. No, the city of Phoenix needed to move themselves and get this done. They talk about this an important project, and I know Van Buren, and it is. And they've had building, you can have developers help you, make this infrastructure. We had Hank, who was a great guy with the Downtown Phoenix Partnership near here, get killed riding his bicycle. This is entwined not only with the whole bicycle path over to Fillmore, because it's right down by Van Buren. Van Buren has been a major street in the city of Phoenix before a lot of us were even here. And the thing is that whole street needs to be fixed because it rattles our brand new buses. I've been on it, particularly getting past this 24th Street. We have affordable housing that the mayor herself has been over there, beautiful project along Van Buren. They expect more of it. Ed, I just really am disappointed that MAG has allowed a third deferral. They said, what was the other deferral? Do you know? What were the conditions for that? I feel at this time, I'm just, talking to the piper, because guess what? Is that it needs to be done. But I don't want to see MAG dragging its feet like this. I'm part of the public, and I expect government to be timely. The city's only got 5% monies in this. The rest is federal money. This job needs to be done.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Comments?
if I might just say something to that. I was actually sitting in one of those chairs in 2019 on the management committee when the second deferral came. I think there's two things about this project that, as Diane mentioned. One is this is the old US 60. It is a very narrow right of way for an arterial street that serves downtown Phoenix, the fifth largest city in the country. And so we're dealing with here, you're talking about 60 to 80 feet. And we talked about, I think, Scottsdale Rural as a 6-lane road. So just the difference in scale makes it difficult. But I think the other important thing it raises is the wisdom of the body in changing in Proposition 400E to expand the arterial street funding to avoid this sort of need to depend on federal funds for these projects. As you heard, a lot of the delay is caused by, because you have federal funds, you have to go through an extensive federal environmental clearance. And when you change the scope because you've listened to the public, you have to go back through that if the scope changes significantly. So I think what happened was the city listened to the public, they changed the scope, they kept listening. As they changed, they had to go back through a federal process. All this stuff slows it down. So for the future, as we have less projects like this that are federally funded, we will have less of those sorts of delays that bring this type of deferral. So just wanted to add that clarification.
Thank you, Ed. Is there a motion to approve agenda item number 7?
So moved.
We have a motion from Mayor Osborne and a second from Mayor Wheatley. We will have those participating in the meeting online unmute and turn on their cameras. Can I have a voice vote of those in the room and those online? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Madam Chair,
Aye.
could I explain my vote?
Please do. Do you need me to call for the nays or?
No.
Okay.
Well, I don't hold Mr. Zerk responsible. I vote aye.
Thank you, Mayor Wires. Those opposed say nay. Mayors, please leave your camera on, or members, please leave your camera on. Staff, can you take a roll call of the members participating virtually who did not turn on their cameras?
Thank you, Madam Chair. All of the members have their cameras on and the motion passes.
Nicely done. Agenda item number 8, economic and housing trends update. Mr. Zerker, can you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am told that this is a highly anticipated item every year. And so to set Anabob up with those high expectations, I'm going to introduce our Regional Analytics Director, Anabob Bagley, who has, I think this actually is important. It's news you can use. It's timely data about the region. This is one of the functions MAG performs for you, which is we aggregate the data that your individual staff pulls for your city. We put it together for the region. Anabob's team gathers that puts it through some national statistics. And I think you'll find this presentation interesting. And will be, of course, available to you afterwards. And we will actually send a copy of the presentation to you specifically after the meeting. I think you'll find it interesting. So with that, big windup, Anubhav, go for it.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the MAG Regional Council. Pleasure to be here. I'll go through a lot of data. Happy to take any questions as I go through that. Big thing, really not a big surprise. Maricopa County, we've been adding a lot of population. We're still very attractive. Based on census numbers, between 2021 and 2022, we added about 56,800 some population growth in this county itself. Number one among the large counties, as you see, most of them are in the West or in Florida. So big, that's a big number. But the other big piece was Phoenix metro area surpassed 5 million. So now we're in the top 10 from size of population side. The other good news, unemployment rate continues to trend down. We are now at about 3.8% unemployment rate, which is the same as the national average. So that is great. And other good news, inflation is trending down. So the green line here is the Phoenix metro area. Last year, about this time, we were at about 11-12% year over year inflation. Now we're at about 3.7%. That's great news. Same as the US national average. We're still trending higher on certain particular things. Gas, food, rent are still higher, but definitely the trajectory and the trend is definitely very good. Concerning is cost of living. This is not a chart that we want a higher ranking. We do not want a higher ranking on this. Phoenix metro area. So cost of living is looked at a national level, indexing across the country, certain services, all kinds of items for sale, that we buy, etc. 100 is the national average. We are above that, 3.8 points above that. Houston's lower than that. Obviously, New York is way higher. But the concerning part is 2021, we were ranked 18. Now we're ranked 12. So this is definitely one where cost of living is trending up. Cost of housing, food, gas, etc. adds up to all of these pieces. I'll go back and forth between good and bad. Great news, diversifying economy. We have really diversified our economy. I don't have the chart from back when our last housing downturn happened, but now our biggest sectors of growth since 2017 have been transportation, warehousing, information, technology, manufacturing. Retail only grew by 5%. That used to be our key sector way back when. We're only growing that by 5%. So great thing on diversifying our economy. This was very evident when we were coming out of that last economic downturn right after the pandemic. Phoenix metro area returned back to normal, what it was pre-pandemic, a year earlier than the national average. So that was a big deal, and that's all said to be about the economy itself. Another good news is housing completions. So this chart is showing you certificates of occupancy on all housing units that we collect from all our member agencies on an annual basis. Back in 2005, pre-housing downturn, we were doing about 48,000 housing units per year, single family, multifamily. That then dropped back in 2011 to about 5,900. And now we're back at 36,000. Last year, in the last fiscal year, we did 36,000 housing completions, of which 40% were multifamily. That's a big difference. One, we're back to the 2007 levels, but the other is now we're doing 40% multifamily, what used to be 14%. So that's a big difference, big change there. I've brought this before to you. This is housing sales pricing by different bins. We track sales price on a monthly basis from MLS, looking at all kinds of sales, etc. The bins are under 200,000. That's that dark blue color, and the lighter green, which used to be under 300,000. So under 300,000 used to account for about 88% of our housing sales back in 2011. Well, that has now dropped to about 13%. So a big change. That's a big change. Obviously, the big one that you see is the increase in the lighter blue. That is the 500,000 plus. That has increased. But what I'd like to draw, and you've seen that, it's a beautiful pattern. It's been coming down. Not that we want that pattern. What's different this time in 2023? For the first time in 12 years, we're seeing some of these bins getting back up. So if you look at that orange or that 300 to 400,000, that and the lighter green 200 to 300,000 actually gained 5.5%. So we are actually moving in that direction, that sales prices are coming down, and some of these bins are adjusting back to where we want them to adjust back. Not a big surprise, our median sales price decreased by 9% since the peak. So back in June 2022, last year, median sales price for all types of homes in the region was 475,000. Obviously, single family housing was much higher. That now is 431,000. Last year, this same time, it was 439,000. So it's stabilized. The housing sales prices have stabilized. It's come down. It's coming down. But you're not seeing any distress in the market. You're not seeing any foreclosures. You're not seeing any of those pieces that we were afraid of back when the market had started coming down because of interest rates were going up. Overall, across the region, if you look at the map, this is by zip code, most of the areas saw a decline. The darker colors here are those zip codes. The darker oranges are where prices declined by 10% or more. The greens are still some areas where you're seeing some increases, but overall, the general market has stabilized. It's come to a place where it's staying where it is at. MLS data is pretty much showing us that the inventory is low. Now, this is very interesting. So the gray line is the number of homes that were listed for sale, both single family, multifamily, obviously under private ownership, is that gray line from 2021 to 2022. 22,600 homes were listed for sale last year at this time in September. Well, that number is now 15,700. The other piece is that the number of homes are staying listed for longer. So what used to be 48 days, but actually at some time it was even lower than that. You were living at that time, you were getting multiple offers, all cash, etc. That market is not there. So the market is not very hot. But what this is also telling us that there is lack of mobility. People are stuck in their homes. They're not able to move up or downsize depending on their family needs, etc., because they're locked into the interest rates, and the interest rates are at a very high level since a very long time, 7 to 8%, and that's changing the mobility factors itself. So that was on the single family. On the housing sales side, this is looking at the same piece from rental pricing. This is for the metro area, apartment units, and their rents. That darker blue was under $500 per month for rent back in 2010. That was pretty big. That's gone. There's nothing left. There's no rental units under $500. The ones that is on 500 to 1,000 is also declined quite a bit, and the ones that are 1,000 to 1,500. That's generally the norm of the market right now, is $1,000 to $1,500 for rent. What you see here is it's stabilized. It's not increasing at the pace that we saw. Actually, in certain submarkets, we saw that decreasing a little bit over time. From year over year, we've seen some decreases on that. What's interesting is you can look at apartment rents and start looking at what is the apartment rent per square foot for those that were recently built or new build versus the older ones. And what this is telling us, that our newer apartments, which are more luxury type apartments, more facilities, are about 15 to 20% higher priced per square foot on rent than the ones that were built earlier than that were built before 2018. But what this is also showing is that higher end of the market also dragged the other market up over time, along with the same way it went up on the other side. So this is good news. We're seeing multifamily rental, vacancy rates increase. Last year, 2021 Q1 was the low when we had 4.9% vacancy rate. That is the number or the percentage of apartment units, multifamily, that were available for rent. That now has about doubled. So it's about 9.5%. That's a great trend, because that means there's more availability. That could be happening because there's lack of demand, or because of the fact that we've built quite a bit. So to look at this visually, I'm trying something different this time around. This is looking at a map of all apartment units across the region that we have data on. These are the larger ones. The size of the circle is showing you the number of units that are vacant as of Q3. So overall in the region, there are about 33,670 vacant apartment units available. So that was September. We pulled this 2 weeks ago. You kind of see some of these larger circles, large areas, large apartment units. These are exact locations of these apartments. Going to take out those that are renting above $2,000. So about 27,000 units are available under $2,000. 11,500 units are available under $1,500. Now, $1,500 is that magic 30% median renter income mark. That's what we always strive for. What you see here is it's not as if that the units are not available. There are 11,500 vacant units available at that price point. It's where they're available. There's a lot of areas in our region where they're just not available. And by the way, this is $1,250 and what's availability at $1,250. So I'll just walk through these once again. All vacant apartment units, 33,670 vacant apartment units. Some of these just came online. They haven't been stabilized. They're coming on. What's available at $2,000, which is 80% of the market is available at $2,000. There's those ones that the color went away are above $2,000 per month.
Mayor Gallego, can I ask a question?
Please do.
Thank you. Is Fountain Hills included in this stuff?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, because like the area where I know we have apartment buildings, seems to be covered up. So I just
It may
wanted
be
to.
covered up. I do have the data. I apologize for that, Mayor.
Okay, thank
You
you.
do see some of those little circles there in red.
Yeah.
But we do have the data on those. And again, the other piece is the size of the circle is the size of the available units.
Thank you.
1,500 is the key piece here is 11,500, which is 30% of what your median rent is. This number actually was 6,700 in 2021. So that's great. There is more supply. The concern that we have looking at these maps is the location. And if you're looking at your workforce and the ability for that workforce to be able to get to the jobs where they live, where they work, this is showing you that concern that we have in terms of affordability and access to jobs. And if folks are able to, or families are able to afford these homes, then they are spending a lot more money on the transportation cost side of things. Moving forward, we're definitely seeing a lot of our member agencies implement rules related to short-term rentals, and we're seeing a 17% reduction in short-term rentals. We've been tracking this year over year. We're looking at 17% overall, and that chart is showing you their availability. And what you're seeing back in 2022, last year, those that were available full-time, so 8,250 units were available 75% of the time. That has now dropped to 6,500. 21,300 were available 25 to 75% of the time. That has now dropped to 17,900. So you're seeing that trend. The green colors on the map are showing certain areas where the number of short-term rentals has increased, but overall, we're seeing about a 17% decline in that. The other piece that we track is institutional buyers, is the amount of purchases that are happening in our housing market that is done by institutions. These are large investors, Redfin, Zillow, OfferPad. Last year, when I presented to you, at that time, we were about 25% of the sales were to institutional buyers. We knew that some of these large institutions like Zillow were exiting the market. There was concern that that would negatively impact the market, and looks like that has not impacted the market as negatively as we felt it would. They did diversify. They did get out of the market. That percentage now is about 13%, which has generally been about the stable percentage for a very long time. The other concern that I raised earlier was the affordability. So this is looking at what percentage of homes sales are affordable at median income. Currently, it's about 30%. So 30%, that's the blue line, is the Phoenix metro area. 30% of sales on a monthly basis are affordable at a median income for that area. It used to be 18%. So that's a good thing. The bad thing is we used to be way better, way more affordable compared to the nation. We're now lower than the US average. US is about 40%, we're 30%. compared to other metros, yes, we are definitely doing better than San Diego, which is 6%, or Salt Lake, but we're definitely trailing, and that is going to could possibly cause some concerns to us going forward. So bringing all that together, we start looking at affordability and cost burden. So there are 256,000 households that we've identified by zip code that are severely cost burdened. And when we say severely cost burdened, that these are the households that are paying 50% or more of their household income for housing. Usually you want this to be about 30% and about 10 to 15% for transportation. Well, this is 50% just for that. That means the trends are showing that these households are having to spend less on healthcare, education, food, apparel, etc., and all of those things, because housing has become quite a bit. So what the map is showing you is this data is available by zip code, where we've looked at this and we can provide you which zip codes have how many households that are severely cost burdened. What's interesting in this is the piece that 27% of multifamily renters are severely cost burdened. That means 1 in every 4 households living in an apartment are severely cost burdened. Evictions is definitely going up. We've been tracking this on a monthly basis. For Maricopa County, evictions now are higher than what they were in the pre-pandemic levels. Permits, residential permits are going up. That's a great trend. We've discussed this in the past. Between the first 2 quarters of this year versus last year, residential permits are about 25% higher than what we've seen the year before. So again, great trends. But overall, the total number of residential permits is capping at about 47, 48,000. That's where it is at this time. Whereas the other piece of information we collect from all our member agencies is this idea of pipeline development. What do we have in the works? What do we have that is on the books at this time? So at this time, the map showing you the orange colored subdivisions are platted subdivisions. The red ones are active. Those are where we have a minimum amount of permits that have been pulled, or they've got residential completions that are going on. Currently, you have about 275,000 housing units that are in the pipeline. Of those 178,000, some are inactive. Of those 178,000, some 106,000 are unbuilt. So we've got pipeline. We've got that pipeline for about 3.5 years based on the permits that we are seeing. So your permits were leveled at that, and you do have approved housing units that are sitting in platted developments. And overall, looking at over some time period, these numbers stay stable. They're either positive or they stay stable. Total pipeline actually went up from 239,000 in 2021 to 275,000. Platted not started has gone up. Now, some of these we keep digging in and updating this data all the time. That unbuilt units is about stable, 119 to 106, but that basically is we're looking at some of these maybe larger development projects that may take more time to get infrastructured, and that's why that number may be stabilizing. So, Madam Chair, this brings me to the end. I'm just basically wanted to come up with takeaways, which is overall the economy is doing better, real estate market is stabilized, vacancy rates are higher. We definitely have challenges in terms of affordability, and that affordability challenge and the fact that households are generally not moving across the country, mobility is lacking. That could become a concern for us for attraction of our labor force, which is the big thing. Our economic growth is based on our labor force attraction. And some recent trends, some papers we're looking at, some data we're looking at is generally pointing to a decline in our net in-migration overall. That brings me to the end of the presentation, Madam Chair, members of Regional Council. Happy to take any questions.
Wonderful. Thank you. Very useful and very.
Madam Chair, I have a question, if you don't mind. There's a discontinuity in here. All I hear about across the valley is salaries going up and not enough workers. And yet the number of rent burdened households is going up at the same time. To me, that seems counterintuitive. You'd think that the increases in the economy, the shortage of workers would be making housing more affordable. Do you have any comment on that?
Madam Chair, Mayor, really the issue has been is this question of is our salary increases across the board keeping up with the increases in the rental prices itself. And it seems that has not been the case. And as I pointed to some of these pieces, it's not that all areas and all types of households are cost burdened or severely cost burdened. One, those that own their own home ownership is great, was great when the interest rates were good, before the prices really went up. Those families that bought homes at that time really are not cost burdened. That percentage is staying at about what it has been historically. It's really the ones that are rental, which do not have much control over their rental prices, where their salaries have not been able to keep up. The other piece really gets down to the location. Across the region, we do have a diversity of house, prices and sizes, et cetera, and everything. It's a question of, are households able to afford to live closer to areas where they want to live with the right kind of amenities and access to their jobs?
Mayor Orsborn.
Thank you. This probably is pretty related to that, but I'm wondering if there's a correlation between the diversification in our economy to the cost of housing. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Mayor Osborne, definitely that's something that we've thought about. It's hard to figure that piece out. One piece you look at is where are large areas of job attraction, what is home availability, et cetera. And you definitely see that piece going on. But other regions that we're talking about, if I go through back to the cost of living, et cetera, and the cost, the fact that we've got housing burden and all of that stuff, other regions have also been growing and attracting a lot of these same kind of jobs. Houston is doing great. Their economy has also been growing, but our cost of living has gone up way more than others. Now, what is the intrinsic reason for that and why that happened? I think that's a bigger, deeper discussion. Possibly we could look into that a little more, but that would be a hard one to see what's going on with that.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. In some past years, you've shared with us points of origin for folks. Is it still about 1 out of 4 from Southern California?
Yes, Mayor. That is pretty much staying same. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Great. And I think the data is always relevant for our discussions with our friends at the Arizona legislature. So 275,000 units that we have all approved, but that have not yet been built.
Madam Chair, it is 275,000 that are in the pipeline, 106,000 are sitting in active unbuilt, and 106,000 are sitting in active unbuilt, 97 sitting in platted unbuilt.
Okay, so there's at least 200,000 that we have all approved, but we're needing workforce or
yes, ma'am,
some other financing.
Right, and the permits are still stabilized. It's not as if that the number of permits being pulled is increasing. So is this a question of what the market needs, what is our labor force and supply chain versus what our member agencies and our cities and towns have approved and are ready to go?
I think that is relevant for our policy discussions. Mayor Wheatley.
Thank you for bringing that up. It is very relevant, especially as going into this next legislative session and the drastic changes to zoning. And so just being able to cite that is very handy to have on hand. So appreciate that.
Wonderful. Seeing no further questions. Thank you so much.
Madam Chair, I just would emphasize, we will send this presentation to you directly into your InterGov, so you will have it. But also remember, Anubhav works for, as MAG, we work for you as member agencies, where you have specific questions, you want to dive deeper in your city or your sub-region or whatever. Anubhav loves this. His staff loves this. That's why they're here. That's what gets them going in the morning. So please reach out to us if you want to dig deeper on any aspect of this. Anubhav will be happy to come. He has made presentations at council meetings. He's able to just talk to you individually. However you want to do it, he stands at your service. Correct?
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Really important for us to have the great data to make decisions. We next go to item 9, the Freeway Life Cycle Program Update, Federal Funding Redistribution. Mr. Zerker.
I will turn it to Mr. Stone to talk about this, which is actually some positive news relative to our ability to continue to fund the freeway projects in Proposition 400 and perhaps have some flexibility there. So Patrick will explain.
Thank you, Ed. Good afternoon, Chair, members of Regional Council. Pleasure to be here to present this item. So the overview of my presentation today, I am going to start with a very high-level discussion of federal highway funding, and then specifically dovetail that into the concept of August redistribution. Going to present a couple of recommendations to Regional Council, specifically focusing on State Route 24 and State Route 30, and then conclude my presentation. So federal highway funding starts at the federal level with the annual appropriations bill. For fiscal year 2023, which is what we're discussing today, just under $60 billion was allocated at the national level. Of that funding, 12.2 billion is actually allocated to programs. It comes off the top. And then the balance of funding, the 46.5 billion, is actually directly allocated to states through federal formula programs, like the Surface Transportation Program. And one thing to note here, this is one of the more stable funding sources we see, is this allocation of funding to the region that comes through the state's appropriation. And then what happens at the end of the year, any unused funding in either the programs or at the state level is then made available to states to compete for through a redistribution process. They call it August redistribution because they give us the funding in August. It actually used to be in September, but they always called it August. For this past fiscal year, 7.9 billion was actually available for states to get additional funding. As noted in the previous slide, consists of unused funding in the current fiscal year reallocated to states. For fiscal 23, that number was 7.9 billion. And I want to pause here. So, and kind of the reason we're bringing this item through today, fiscal year 23 was an aberration. It was 28% higher than the previous fiscal year 22, which in and of itself was the previous high level. This will not happen again. This number is not coming back. It was just a confluence of a few factors that it ended up being that number of 7.9 billion. It's staggering to see a number that large. And just to set context, typically the state of Arizona receives about 1% of the pool that's available. And in fiscal year 2023, the state received 3%, which equated to 225 million. And of that 225 million that the state received, the MAG region received 80 million, or 1% of the entire nation's total. So given that windfall, a couple of programming recommendations. First, cost contingencies. As we've seen, inflation has been quite prevalent in the region. The thought is to hold back some of the funding to potentially offset future cost escalations, making sure that we're able to keep projects on schedule. And then specific to today, a recommendation to commence final design on State Route 24 between the 202 and Ironwood, and then final design on State Route 30 between the 202 South Mountain and 67th Avenue. So digging a little deeper for State Route 24.
If I can, if you just go back to that. I think it's important because there's some misinformation in some of these comments. The comment was that we're spending Prop 400 extension money. What this is doing is using extra federal money to do the pre-work for Prop 400 extension, so that assuming that it will pass the ballot box, those projects are even more ready to go right away. If it doesn't pass at the ballot box, we have whatever work we've done, we'll sit and wait until something happens, but it is not pre-spending Prop 400. It's actually freeing up Prop 400 extension money when we get there, we hope, and being ready so that when the gun sounds on January 1st, 2026, we're out of the blocks instead of a long lead up time. So this is actually good news and not quite the way it has been posed in some of the online comments.
Thank you, Ed. So moving on, specifically State Route 24, the final design is to add an additional general purpose lane between the 202 Santan and Ironwood Drive, as along with above grade signalized intersections as identified on the screen at 3 specific TIs. For State Route 30, it would be initiating final design on the interim facility between the State Route 202 South Mountain and 67th Avenue. Looking at the map, this is starting from the eastern end of the project and building west. Current timeline, here today in front of Regional Council to have a conversation about this request. The intent is to come back with potential TIP amendments for the November Policy Committee cycle and looking at final design for both those projects commencing early in 2024. And with that, Madam Chair, members of the Regional Council, that concludes my presentation. I'd be available for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Wonderful. Thank you for that important update and some good news. Item 10 is the, Mayor Woods.
Sorry, just one quick thing, Madam Chair. Just a question, just actually more of a statement, just sort of based on the conversation we had at the Transportation Policy Committee meeting last week about expanding the Diamond Grind pilot project to for all the freeway projects. I would just want to ask for Regional Council consideration of holding back some contingency money just for remediation for noise issues along the Loop 101, sort of the Price Road corridor, just as a result of that sort of first Diamond Grind pilot, just to ensure not taking any money away from future projects that would happen in the East or West Valley, but just holding back some contingency funds because we know it's sort of been an issue along that Price Road corridor for a lot of residents in Tempe, Mesa, and Chandler, I believe, who've complained about some of the noise. So I just wanted to see if I could get Regional Council approval on that.
Wonderful.
So, Madam Chair, this is not for action today, but per Mayor Wood's request, what we could do if we don't hear any objections to it is when Patrick comes back next month with the TIP amendments, we can reflect some amount held to accommodate those Diamond Grind pilot impacts that were discussed at TPC.
Great.
I support Mayor Wood's request.
Through the chair, I also support that, Mayor Hartke.
Great. Thank you. There was a little bit of nodding in the room. All right.
We'll
thank you.
have more detail on that next
Great.
month, but that helps us kind of put a parameter around what will come back through that process that Patrick described.
Wonderful. Thank you, Patrick. And now we will go to the Executive Director's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A lot has been going on, so we wanted to just reflect through a few things that have been happening for your information. First, in the affordable housing side, our Deputy Executive Director, Amy St. Peter, participated in something that got quite a bit of media attention, an Arizona Talks forum about how to make housing more affordable. It's been a conversation here at Regional Council. So Amy was there with several others, including the Director of the Department of Housing, a former state legislator, and it was to facilitate a dialogue and nonpartisan solutions about how to get more affordable housing. So Amy represented us all well there at that forum. In another aspect of our work, our Director Vladimir Lipschitz here, who you see, is featured on Verizon.com/business. It is a partnership between ADOT, MAG staff, and Verizon to pilot test an alert system using technology to inform you as you're driving. If you're part of their pilot project, your phone will tell you there's a slowdown ahead, there's a curve ahead. The back of the line starts at 7th Street if you're headed westbound. Those sorts of informations which are designed to keep people safe and reduce traffic fatalities. So if you go to Verizon.com/business and look in there, there's a whole video where our very own Vladimir is speaking along with Verizon and ADOT staff. It's pretty cool. A reminder that we have this facility here that you all support, and it is available to you, and it is available for things of interest to the region. One that happened just the last couple of days, we hosted a national summit, a regional summit on the community partnership for human services transportation. We co-hosted with the National Aging and Disability Transportation Center out of Washington, D.C. It was funded with FTA. We had participation from Federal Highways, Federal Transit, folks from throughout Arizona on both the human services and the transportation side, melding together to find ways to better serve populations that are largely transit reliant, make that better. And next slide has a couple pictures of a few people speaking, not at the event. I would just emphasize use these facilities for your needs. If you have a need for a centrally located meeting. If we have availability, we want to host you here. We've done that for some member agencies. We just continue to make that available to you, that if you need a centrally located place, think about MAG as a place, and we don't charge you because you're already paying for it. Next slide. MAG Livable Communities Award. Some of you were at last week's I'm forgetting the name. Clean Air Campaign Awards. Thank you. Mayor Dickey was there for that. And the MAG Livable Communities Award, we sponsor that with Valley Metro, was presented to Goodyear, Avondale, and Surprise for the, I believe it was the We Ride microtransit. Yeah, We Ride microtransit on demand service for those three cities. So that was pretty neat to see those folks receiving recognition for that innovative project last week. Next, last week also, Goodyear, Avondale, and Surprise, the second bullet there, also received an Excellence in Innovation Award for the same project from Westmark. So congratulations to those cities. Also, our former chair, Mayor Ken Weiss, was recognized with a Regional Advancement Award from Westmark for his work on Proposition 400 last year. Sorry, Mayor Weiss can't be here with us today, but that was a neat award for him. And then all the West Valley mayors were honored as a group in the President's Award for the work done to advance Proposition 400, and that's a Westmark Award, Best of the West. So congratulations to you all for that, those awards. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Wonderful. Thank you, Ed, for that update. Next, we go to our legislative update.
Thank you, Mayor. And last thing you'll hear from me today is on this. So this is related to the legislature in the sense that the legislature does have a joint legislative ad hoc committee on air quality and fuel or energy, or it's energy and air quality. That's what it is. They have been meeting, and MAG staff have been testifying there on occasion. Their most recent meeting we did not testify at was related to the fuel sources in the region, as the legislature and the governor is trying to explore ways to, if there are ways to bring fuel prices down. It's a very complicated subject because fuel mixtures are part of our air quality planning. So particularly as we've talked about ozone, we have to be really careful, and we would continue to emphasize that with the state, really careful with what they do with fuel mixtures, because it impacts our transportation funding. And related to ozone and air quality, we told many of you, Mayor Gallego and Chairman Clint Hickman of Maricopa County did follow through on the letter that was sent earlier in the summer with the EPA. The second in command in EPA, who's the air quality administrator, agreed to a meeting. Mayor Gallego and Chairman Hickman met to put a human face on the Phoenix regional story of ozone non-attainment that we continue to struggle with. I felt it was well received by the administrator. He was very complimentary of the information that the mayor and the chairman presented. There was an emphasis from us on our commitment to public health and the economic vitality of the region, particularly in the areas where our economic growth is about the solution to ozone, things like solar, battery production, autonomous and electric vehicles, and all the economic development that is part of providing less stuff in the air. And we advocated that EPA consider that, and that what we called, please don't sanction the solution. And we were encouraged. The administrator said, I think he described the Maricopa region as, I wrote it down, the beating heart of economic development for clean air energy in the United States. So there was a recognition in Washington that what's going on here is really important for clean energy and clean air. However, the Clean Air Act is a very difficult act because it's very specific and very prescriptive, and we fall within that. So we asked, and he committed to continue to work with us to find possible answers to what we're seeing, which is a disconnect between the decrease in the emissions coming from the region and the lack of decrease in ozone. They've separated over time. The decrease in emissions has led to a decrease in ozone concentration until about 5 years ago, when those two disconnected, ozone started going up while emissions continued to drop. It doesn't make a lot of sense. We have EPA's own data that shows that they didn't predict that to happen. So we have a commitment, and we actually have had follow-up meetings with technical staff from EPA to really dig into why is that happening? What is going on that is not jiving with what the science says should be happening? What other explanations are there? So we continue also to brief Senators Sinema and Kelly's staff, who are very engaged in this, because Clean Air Act revisions, which haven't happened in almost 35 years, will have to come from Congress and probably from the Senate side. So we continue to talk to them on that legislative side. Following in the last couple of weeks, though, the EPA has moved forward just as we've expected, and in addressing our ozone situation in 11 states, including Arizona, in the MAG region. They found a failure to submit a plan to deal with our ozone, which again is not unexpected, because that was the reason we were meeting with them, to say it's almost impossible for us to submit a plan under your current guidance because of this disconnect. And so that's what they committed to work with us on. Their finding starts an 18-month process that we are engaged in with them here to identify ways to have a plan that will reduce ozone, or through other processes with EPA to address their timelines. So we'll continue to keep you updated on that. And just to kind of put it in context, the other 11 states that are in the same, or the other in the other 11 states, the regions that are in the same boat as we are, which is having this issue with ozone, include the entire Connecticut region of the New York metropolitan area, Chicago, Houston, Philadelphia, Dallas, San Antonio, and Las Vegas. So clearly this is a national level issue that we're engaged in, and we'll continue to do that as well. And we'll continue to keep you updated on that situation. Thank you, Mayor.
Wonderful. Thank you. Any questions? Next item is request for future agenda items. Do any members of the Regional Council have a request? Did you? Okay. I do not. Seeing no requests, we'll move on to comments from the committee. Any comments or announcements from the membership? Seeing none, we are adjourned. Our next meeting will be on Wednesday, November 29th at